clarified his position on Ukraine and NATO. Donald Trump has finally clarified his position on Ukraine and NATO, and it's more establishment bullshit. Donald Trump explained how he would want the NATO countries to match the United States contributions because Donald Trump has long since been critical of other states not paying more into NATO. So this is not a call to cut spending to Ukraine and NATO. This is actually a call for more funding. This is after months of the corporate media and John Bolton recently going on a PR tour pretending that Donald Trump is a threat to United States allies and to NATO. Donald Trump is just another pro-establishment cuck. I said last year that Donald Trump would be a pro-NATO president. He would just spin it to his brainwashed supporters as making NATO great again. The United States foreign policy doesn't really change between presidents. Anyone who believes that is a rube. The Make Israel Great Again movement plans to double down on Biden's commitment to send billions of dollars of American taxpayer money to Israel. You know, Israel, where they provide free healthcare and free education to their people. But if you advocate for the same thing for Americans, the Make America Great Again movement will call you a filthy commie. Nothing makes me cringe more when people pretend that Donald Trump and the MAGA movement is anti-establishment. They are literally one half of the establishment.
The U.S. plans to strike Iranian personnel and facilities in both Iraq and Syria. So U.S. officials have confirmed that plans have been approved for a series of strikes over a number of days against targets, including Iranian personnel and facilities in both Iraq and Syria. This is in response to the drone strike that happened in Jordan that the U.S. has been blaming Iran for, without any evidence. The Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin came out and said that we won't tolerate any attacks on American troops. So I just want to understand this correctly. You can attack other people's troops all you want to. You can attack other people's countries when you feel like you can take their resources when you feel like it. And if they retaliate, it's a problem. But the U.S., they won't tolerate any attacks on their troops that are put in places they're not supposed to be at anyway. But I digress. But let's just say for the sake of the argument that, you know what? It's okay. You want to fight people who attack your soldiers. That's fine. But who are you fighting? Who are you fighting? Because you say you're going to attack Iran's facilities, but where's the proof at? Where's the proof that it was Iran? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still looking. I'm still looking for the evidence. And the reason I keep looking is because not only has the U.S. not provided any evidence, but Iran has already come out and denied any level of attachment to the attack. But they were kind enough to mention that, yeah, there are a lot of pissed off people in the region, in case you haven't noticed, because y'all have been funding a genocide. And so no one's happy, and they already have plenty of reason to be pissed off at you. And so they're acting independently. In other words, if this indeed was a genuine attack on U.S. military, then once again, it's a consequence of your own actions, and you're just trying to find a scapegoat. But the commander-in-chief of Iran's military came out and said, y'all try this if you want to, and we're going to respond. And Iran will be perfectly justified in retaliating accordingly. Because how the hell are you going to blame Iran for some random groups attacking you because you're alleging that they fund those groups? Well, if that logic follows, aren't y'all responsible? Isn't the U.S. responsible for the genocide that happened in Palestine right now? Aren't y'all responsible for the millions then that got killed in Iraq, and also responsible for all of the people who've died in Syria? I mean, you see where this is going. It's a slippery slope, and the U.S. is busting their ass.
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces. Not really. Maybe. It's classified.
What's poppin'? What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome to another edition of Nick at Noon. We are back on Saturday. I do 3 Saturday streams every month. Glad to be back. There's a lot to talk about today. Man, if you guys haven't subscribe to Nico's House channel. What are you doing? What are you doing? If you guys don't follow Hotspot on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, what are you doing? They're helping us produce these bangers after banger after banger after banger of anti-imperialist content, real journalism that calls out the ruling class. That's what we're doing at Hotspot, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't follow the Facebook and Twitter, you're missing the coverage that they do exposing the lies of the government. So I am honored to be working with Hotspot. I'm honored to be working with this project with Nico House. So make sure you guys check them out, man. Nico House killing the game. You guys have to subscribe to the channel as well. Big shout out to my boy Neymar Taco dropping memberships. We just started this. Yeah, what are you guys? If you're not following Nico House, what are we doing? So before there was RB and there was Nico House. Before there was RB and there was Nico House. The person who took a lot of unpopular positions and was vindicated, calling out wars, calling out the Syria psyop. And now we're bombing Iraq and Syria. We're bombing Iraq again. Nico House was one of the people that was explaining to people that we have a progressive movement that is voting for a segregationist, an imperialist segregationist. Hopefully my internet is holding up. Let me share it. I want to share this tab here. Because this is going to be another stream on Nick at Night, Nick at Noon, and our stream that we did Thursday. That's why I wasn't live Thursday evening, because I did a 3-hour banger with our founders roundtable, CJ, Rome, and myself, and we was talking. I had this segment planned because this should have been bothering me for a very long time. I did a segment talking about irresponsible parents. As someone who is a victim of an irresponsible parent, my father, I do have high standards for parenting. There's nothing that irritates me fucking more than people who just have kids so they can put them on Instagram and Facebook. They have no idea what they're doing. They're not mentoring a person. You guys know when you're a parent, you're mentoring a human being. Now people have kids so they can post pictures on Instagram and get likes now. So I haven't had kids because I didn't feel like in my 20s I was in a position mentally to have children. People just have children just to have children. People just fucking being shit parents. And then they wonder why their kids end up fucked up. It's something that always bothered me. That's why I was very hard. And I didn't know how you guys would accept. I didn't know how that segment was going to be accepted. I was like, man, I might get my ass chewed out for this, but I got to say what I have to say, because there's nothing more irresponsible than allowing your child to die in war. And now, not only that, because of their parents and because of everyone who sends their kids overseas, we now have a regional war that's been started because these parents allow their children to be used as bait. These parents allow their children to be used as a human tripwire. And look at these faces. What are these Negroes doing in Syria? They're not telling you on corporate media. There's a conversation they're trying to avoid. I am not politically correct. This is not a liberal channel. This is not a channel that's trying to protect people's feelings. Because of the negligence of these parents, we are now at war. And this is exactly what they wanted. This is exactly what the establishment wanted. They had these parents on these corporate media outlets. We showed you guys the Joy Ann Reid one. And Joy Ann Reid was like, what do you want Biden to do? And now they're using your child's sacrifice in order to start a war that will kill millions of people. Holy shit. That's an F as parenting if you ever seen it. I'm sorry if that's mean to say. But if you have a child and they starve to death because you were negligent on feeding them, people will give that parent shit. But these parents allow their children to die in wars, fighting for no honor. These people died honorless. You guys understand? These people died as international criminals, breaking the sovereignty of another country. They didn't die defending the sovereignty of their nations. They didn't die fighting for liberation or revolution, fighting for their people. They didn't die for that. They died for oil money. 80% of the oil output of Syria that we steal, they died for the oil companies. They died so we can have the ability to steal wheat from Syria. The Iraq government voted to expel United States soldiers 2 times in 4 years. So despite the fact that the Iraqi government and the Syrian government wanted those people out, these people decided to become criminals on behalf of the government because they wanted free college. But I'm supposed to be nice to these people? Can we change the culture? Will we stop idolizing and worshiping these bootlickers who wanted to take a shortcut instead of advocating for revolution? You wanted to climb the economic ladder by becoming an international criminal to the state that enslaved your ancestors? You people are embarrassing. Embarrassing. And now because of your parents' inability to educate you guys, we are now in a regional war. Now, I have to say this because can you imagine if like a white leftist said what I'm saying? They would get fucking eviscerated. But I'm holding my community accountable. People always complain about when I talk about white America. I told you guys I hold my community account just as hard. For all the people like, niggas so mean to white people. I find it unacceptable that anyone in our community would send our niggas out to war. That's crazy. That's crazy. My mom would never, ever do that. The idea that anyone would go to war in our community is crazy. How did this ever become normalized? I'm not saying that you got to look at these parents in the eyes because I wouldn't. I don't have the heart to. Rome is the motherfucker who probably would. I don't have the heart to look these parents in the eye and say, you're the reason why your child died. But they are. I got too much compassion to tell these people the truth. Because I show you guys the Joy and Reed segment where the lady on the right, my right here, or was it the middle? I forgot which one. But their mom served in the military as well. So it's a family tradition to serve empire. But I'm supposed to feel bad? I served the military proudly. Now I want my children to serve the military. Yeah, congratulations. Your family tradition got your child killed. Great job. Let's continue. This is Mac's tweet where Max nails it. I'm way more crude than Max, though. Max is way more calculated than me because he's saying essentially the same thing I'm saying without because my job to hold my community accountable. I'm going to say the hard part. Like if Max said what I just said, he will get canceled so fucking fast by the liberals, by the people who want to take down green law. Max shame the family members. At a certain point, we do guys shame these people, send their child to war. That's crazy. And then the one of the parents was asked about her opinion about the Middle East, and she's like, I don't know anything about Syria. What? Are you serious? You send your child to Syria, you send your child to a country, and you have no idea what's going on there? Nigga, there's nothing more important for you to know than information about the country you're sending your child to fight for. Even if I had no idea about the Middle East and Syria, you wouldn't know who will become an expert in Syria in less than 2 days if I had a child that was going to fight the war there? If my child was going to fight a war in Syria, nigga, I'll have a doctorate in Syria in a week. I will want to know everything about the country, why we're there, who we're fighting. That's what I would do. But these parents, I don't know. I'll send my kid to fight somewhere. They're like, oh, we didn't know what we sent our kids to fight in Iraq for. Are you serious? Nigga, I will be an expert in Iraq history. I will know everything about that goddamn country if I theoretically had a child that was sent to fight there. The negligence of parents in this country amazes me. It's amazing to me. I don't have kids because I didn't feel I was ready. I still don't feel like I'm ready. I didn't want to grow up with poor children. I was like, if I don't make it, I'm not having kids. I never made it. Like, it's something I take very seriously. And people in this country just fucking don't give a fuck. They got kids they don't teach. They send their kids out to the military. They let the kids get brainwashed by education in school. They allow their fucking kids get their labor value stolen by capitalists. These motherfuckers are horrible parents in this country. And then they're like, Nick, why don't you have children? Nigga, why do you? Why do you have kids? At least I'm emotionally intelligent enough to admit that I'm not ready. These motherfuckers who send their kids out to die in war, they was not ready. Let me read Matt's tweet. I didn't read it yet. Thank you, CJ, for setting up Rumble. I don't know why I keep fucking up. Big shout out to my man CJ who set up Rumble, and he added a new graphic. So CJ worked so hard, man. You guys don't know. Big shout out to CJ. This is Mac's tweet. These Americans didn't join the army to be deployed to a distant desert base as human tripwires for war with Iran. The Pentagon used them as imperial fodder and sacrificed them to protect the strategic death of an apartheid colony called Israel, not to defend their country. These people died without honor. And it was used as a tripwire, as Max Blumenthal explained, in order to get the war with Iran that the establishment wanted for years. For decades, they wanted this war with Iran, so they sent some Negroes to Syria and like, all right, let's let these niggas die. Let's have our enemy kill the black people. They're not sending their rich kids. They're not sending their children out as bait. They send black and brown people. That's why it's absurd. Biden said earlier that he knew that this attack was going to happen. He said it was only a matter of time before United States troops died. And then he allowed these motherfuckers to stay and died. And then the parents come on TV and then they said, thank you for your child's sacrifice. That's what Joanne Reed said. That was all these interviews with these people said. I've seen multiple of them. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for sacrificing your child for empire. That is literally what they say to these people's face. And these parents are like, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll sacrifice my kid. Thank you. Well, see, we're so proud. We're so proud. Like, it's the clown shit what I see in this country every single day. And I used to feel bad. I went through a very serious bout of depression. You know what I mean? Because I was an outsider in this country. I didn't fit in. Now that I'm older and wiser, I'm like, thank God I don't fit in this trash society. Yeah, thank you for your service. Your kids, you sacrificed your kid in war. Oh yeah, I appreciate it. They were so brave. I'm so proud. What the fuck is wrong? One of the parents said that she wanted to see more black women in the military. Her daughter died in the military, and then she said she wanted to see more daughters die in the military. It's insane. It's insane, man. This is the tweet. President Biden warns, if you harm an American, we will respond after U.S. strikes Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria. You guys see what Biden did? You guys see the trick of the establishment? They send poor black and brown people to commit international crimes and break the sovereignty of other countries. And then once those countries respond to these criminals that they created, they then say, oh, we got to go to war because you guys didn't allow us to illegally occupy our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen 10 segments over the last 24, 48 hours preparing this shit for you guys. So I know what the enemy is saying, so I can do a good report for you guys. Not one time in any of these corporate media segments have they ever explained that we are illegally occupying these countries. Not only are we illegally occupying these countries, Iraq voted for us to leave. I did hotspot videos about that multiple times. I did so many segments on this. I got these articles just saved and bookmarked. Let's see if I can find another one. Iraq votes U.S. votes to expel U.S. troops. Here's one of them. Despite Iraqi's prime minister's call, U.S. troops won't likely to leave Iraq any soon. So despite the calls of their parliament and prime minister and the will of the people, They voted using a legitimate election. Well, not election, but a legitimate legislative process. That's what I meant. A legitimate legislative process in order to expel U.S. troops. And then the United States said, no, fuck you. Make us leave. Make us leave. I dare you. I promise you guys won't do anything. I promise on my mama, you guys not going to do shit. You're not going to do shit to us, homie. And then they were like, oh, God damn it. Someone did shit to them. And now they say, oh, my God, look at these terrorists. We got to have war with these people. Have you guys have any idea how unhinged our government is? This is the other time Iraqi parliament votes to expel U.S. troops. Trump threatened sanctions. So, am I supposed to feel bad about these international criminals? Am I supposed to feel bad about you not? Are we supposed to be rooting for this fucking terrorist criminal regime simply because we were born on this dirt? Don't you guys want to live in a just society? Like, how are people comfortable living in the evil empire? You know what I mean? Some of the propaganda that they fed on us growing up worked on me. Like, you know how they have like these Disney movies? Like, I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan, right? Like, you had the Saiyans fight Frieza, and because Frieza had the evil army. If you guys don't know Dragon Ball Z, Frieza had the evil army. Frieza went around colonizing other planets, destroying other planets, killing who knows how many millions and billions of people. That metaphor of Frieza's army is literally the United States. How are people like, so growing up, this is what I meant. So when I see these shows, I'm like, all right, I was propagandized to want to root against evil, right? Like, you root for Goku over Frieza. You know what I mean? You root for I don't know Star Wars like that, but you know how they fight the evil empire. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, if you think about it, that's kind of like propaganda, but we are being propagandized into wanting evil to lose. We want good to prevail. So I know that now with my knowledge. I know, like, we've been programmed by the shows, but that's good, right? Like, we were taught, we have been trained to root against evil through our media, through Hollywood, through all these propaganda programs. We are taught to hate evil. So how do people grow up with this thought? This is like this thing that I think about all the time. Rooting against evil empires in fiction, but you are okay with living in the evil empire because you guys get the illusion of fucking benefits from this. As someone who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and all these fucking amazing cartoon shows where they defeated evil, and I love those stories in general. I'm still a comic book nerd. You know what I mean? I love the cheesy ass story of the hero being the bad guy. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that 100%. So how do people just okay with this reality? We are the bad guys. But here in corporate media, because I want to show you guys some corporate media reactions before I get to the other story. The corporate media has been fucking batshit crazy, rooting for war as aggressively as they possibly can. You have these chicken hawks on Fox News that essentially like, man, Biden, yeah, he's doing this crazy illegal military action, but he's not doing that. Why won't he bomb Iran? Why won't we go to war with Iran? What are you, a pussy? What are you, a coward? Literally, that was like Janine Pirro said. Janine Pirro literally was like, Biden is a coward. Fam, you guys never, ever want to see people in the media calling politicians cowards because they're not advocating for more war. That is when we reach a peak level of insanity in a country. That's how you know you've gone too far. When people in the media is calling politicians cowards because they don't want to bomb. I'm going to show you guys that later. I don't kind of spoil it. Let's get into this because we're going to have we're going to have our guest on here very soon. Someone I've been trying to book on for a while. We're going to talk about union corruption. I don't want to be too long today. So let's get into this propaganda segment. Bro, this is crazy. I I had a hard time picking what videos to show you guys for this. I picked these two because these two like stood out to me. But honestly, guys, you can watch any of these segments. Any one of them. I would tell you, I watched maybe 10, 12 of these segments preparing for my Saturday show. I didn't know which one to pick. Every single one of them is crazy. So I decided with these two. There's gonna be a lot more of these segments moving forward, where I want to show you guys how they are propagandizing our country. We are living in the most propagandized country in probably human history. Like us with our allies, Israel. Like if you was to connect like the axis of evil, US, UK, and Israel, and then combine them to as one giant propaganda network, no greater propaganda network ever than what we've seen between this unholy alliance between United States, Israel, and UK. Because whenever I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world, the pushback that I get there, I'm like, I get it. When people say the BBC, the UK, and Israeli propaganda, I'm like, yeah, I can see that being to the tier of the United States. So let's combine all three because they're all allies. If you take the United States, UK, and Israel, there's never been a larger, most insidious propaganda network ever. That's my new statement. So let's watch it. I don't have to go enough. So let's watch it.
Easy set of hours on this network. The first thing I have to ask you is, I'm old enough to remember the first time the U.S. struck targets in Iraq. And while we're talking a lot about Iran here, I wonder what you think the implications are of striking targets in Iraq to go after Iran vis-a-vis the U.S. relationship with Iraq.
That's someone who knows that she's a bad guy now. Because you're like, yeah, I was old enough when we bombed Iraq earlier. Oh, so why can't you realize why the people in Iraq and Syria may not like you guys, considering the same people fighting the axis of evil right now are the people who grew up during the brutal campaign led by the West in Iraq that led to 2.3 million deaths of Iraqis and millions more being displaced. And you guys are wondering why they chanting death to America? I'd be doing way more chanting if I was them. Let's continue.
Well, I think it's potentially very complicated, Alex. The reality is these groups have been operating, as Missy said, in Iraq since the height of the Iraq War. They're pretty entrenched there. And the U.S. has 2,500 troops in Iraq dating back to the counter-ISIS campaign after we withdrew all the troops from Iraq in 2011.
You see how he's saying these crimes? What he's laying out is crimes, guys. He said a lot of these troops are entrenched there. They have been there since the original Iraq campaign. Well, not the original, because the original like 90, but the bombing of Iraq, the war in Iraq during the George W. Bush administration. He's explaining how these people been there. They've been entrenched. And he just casually talking about how we are violating the sovereignty of another country with no emotion in his face. In fact, they imply it's a good thing. I'm going to let it continue for a bit here.
They're pretty entrenched there. And the U.S. has 2,500 troops in Iraq dating back to the counter-ISIS campaign. After we withdrew all the troops from Iraq in 2011, 2,500 remain as part of supporting counterterrorism operations, training the Iraqi security forces. But their presence is controversial inside of Iraq. And part of what these groups want is to provoke...
You guys see what he said? He said their presence is controversial in Iraq. Oh, that's a fucking understatement if I ever heard one, sir. Their presence in Iraq is so controversial that you have politicians, the parliament, and the prime minister that formally voted for the United States to leave. The prime minister had done speeches. They have called for the United States to leave. That's how controversial they are. You notice how they don't mention that fact in this segment? But Jesus Christ, I'm going to let it continue, but there's so many lies to spot. There's so many lies to spot in these segments.
Their presence is controversial inside of Iraq. And part of what these groups want is to provoke the United States into actions that lead to the Iraqi government asking the U.S. to get out, essentially.
They already did that, by the way. You see how he's misleading the audience? Iraq already did that. They have been doing that for years.
And that may be what's happening here, because it puts a lot of pressure on the Iraqi government. Look, it makes them look like they don't control their sovereignty. They're not a part of these strikes. So every time the U.S. takes a pretty significant military action in Iraq, kind of over the head of the Iraqi government, which is majority Shia, has ties to Iran itself, it puts them in a really difficult spot here.
He just casually explaining how America is just violating the sovereignty and embarrassing the government in Iraq. And then they wonder why these militants are attacking them, why Iraq and Syria want them attacked and killed. These soldiers are committing massive crimes that they just casually talking about on TV. Just casually talking about this. This shit is crazy, man. Now I know why I picked this segment here. Now I remember why. Let me go back a little bit and let it play.
Kind of over the head of the Iraqi government, which is majority Shia, has ties to Iran itself, it puts them in a really difficult spot here. So Iraq becomes kind of a battleground for this proxy between the U.S. and Iran. Also, if these groups wanted to respond, one of the places that is available to them as a target is the U.S. diplomatic presence in Iraq. Thus far, we've seen them target U.S. troops in the region, but also I'm sure that there's really heightened security around the U.S. embassy in Baghdad and for all Americans in Iraq.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure the Biden administration remembers, what we've done in Iraq and is sort of understands those ramifications as well, which leads me to
he supported it, and now he's doing it again. Joe Biden, when pressed by Bernie Sanders in his campaign about his Iraq war vote, his advocacy, his campaign that led to the deaths of millions of people in Iraq, 2.3 million at least. He led a campaign in Afghanistan. He started the Middle East wars. And then pressed by Bernie, he said he learned his mistake. He learned his lesson. He I made a mistake. I learned my lesson. Now let's move on. And now he's doing it again. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then this fucking propaganda is like, yeah, I know Biden learned from his mistake in Iraq. Did he, though? Did he, though?
Sort of understands those ramifications as well, which leads me to, what do you think of the president's calibration here? I mean, we saw what he did when American sort of commercial interests were threatened in the Red Sea. Did he have to respond at this level when American lives were lost?
He didn't have to. I mean, the reality is there's been a war that has been a regional war for a long time. Since Hamas's attack on October 7th, that war has escalated dramatically across the region.
People wondering, I see this comment. I see a few of these comments. I'll try to catch some of them. Why this chick is so happy, fam? You guys should have seen like the breaking news segment from MSNBC when they first announced this. The CNN segment. I have never seen corporate journalists this excited about a breaking news story. They are so happy. She's probably the least enthused I've seen. But let's continue.
Region. What he's chosen to do here, Alex, is he's kind of gone about as far as you could turn the dial up without going directly into Iran. That would be crossing a major threshold into a direct confrontation between the U.S. and Iran. What it feels like they're doing here in dozens of strikes today on several different locations in Iraq and Syria, and signaling that it's just the beginning of something, it feels like they're really going after essentially this network of militias and groups and supply nodes where the IRGC provides weapons to these groups, or just places where they operate. And they may be trying to really put all these groups on their back foot. Now, that may help deter in the near term their capacity to launch attacks against U.S. troops. Where I'd caution, Alex, though, is that these groups aren't going to come out and surrender. They've lived through the Iraq War. They've lived through the Syrian civil war. The Houthis have lived through years of war in Yemen. They can be knocked back, but you're not going to eliminate these groups in the same way that Israel's not going to eliminate Hamas in Gaza. So I just think at some point, the only way to really bring security to U.S. forces in the region is for there to be a de-escalation, and frankly, a de-escalation in Gaza as well as across the region. They seem to want to send this message and knock these groups back in the meantime, but it's a very volatile and unpredictable situation in a part of the world where we've learned one thing, Alex, one thing. We don't control events in the Middle East. Unpredictability is likely to follow any action that we take.
That's an analysis from someone who's an absolute dipshit. One, he said it's so unpredictable what's about to happen. It is not unpredictable. You're leading to a regional war. What's unpredictable about you bomb a country, you piss them off, they retaliate, and leads to war? Why are you saying that it's unpredictable? How is it unpredictable that you lead to increase escalation after bombing a country? It is not unpredictable. And they keep saying this stuff, how Joe Biden doesn't want a regional war. You know how you get a regional war? You bomb other countries. I'm really asking Americans to critically think about this kind of stuff. They tell you shit on corporate media that make no damn sense, and people repeat it. Biden doing everything he can to prevent a regional war as he illegally strikes two countries and continue to illegally occupy them. How does that make sense? And now they're going to continue to say stuff that make no sense here. I want to show you guys, I want to do it this way on purpose. I want to show you guys the MSNBC and now the Fox News version. And you guys see this word that they keep using, deterrence. They say we are engaging in deterrence. No, they are not. Stop believing shit they say. Joe Biden does not bomb Iraq and Syria to deter Iran, to deter the militant groups. Joe Biden bombs these groups and bombs these regions because they want war. That's a very important point to make. That's a very, very important point to make because they tell you the exact opposite. This is what Julian Assange explained to you. It's not about winning these wars. It's not about preventing these wars. It's about wars for war's sake. We got strikes and we got bombs that's landing in Syria and Iraq. You know how much money their weapon defense contractors about to make now? Because we now got overproduction of weapon supplies. Free contracts being handed out to these people. The war is about enriching these people and their donors. That's why everyone in corporate media is happy because they are paid off by Boeing and Raytheon, and they are making a ton of fucking money right now. It's not about winning. It's not about sovereignty. It's not about international law. I need you guys to understand. They are doing this in order for there to be conflict. They wanted never-ending conflict from the beginning. This is Thomas Massey showing the receipt of Joe Biden in 2007. I'm going to show this before I get to the Fox News video. Where he called out George Bush for advocating for war with Iran. Because it's something that the establishment always wanted. Now he wants to do it.
And I want to make it clear, and I made it clear to the president, that if he takes this nation to war in Iran without congressional approval, I will make it my business to impeach him.
So Joe Biden launching these strikes without congressional approval, illegally occupying these countries, how is that not an impeachable offense?
Fact. That is a fact.
Anyway, let's move on. We got to have our guest here soon. We're going to talk about the how unions been hijacked here very soon. I'm going to bring my guest in after we do a quick little review of this video. Because, bro, if you guys thought the MSNBC shit was bad, bro, I almost can't wait to maggots. I can't wait till this shit happens where all the people who pretend that they're like this anti-war movement on the right. I remember Russell Brand, a guy I've been dragging a lot recently. Do you guys remember when Russell Brand said Greg Gutfeld was funny? That's why I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. How could any mortal person watch this guy and think he's funny? It's beyond me. I'm out. I can't do it. Because I'm going to show you guys Greg Gutfeld, who never seen a war he didn't want. They talk about deterrence, and they pretend that going to war and bombing people is how you deter people who they paint Iran and these countries as crazy psychopaths, but they think if you bomb them, they're going to stop fighting you. Don't you guys see how that makes no sense? These people are crazy terrorists who don't care if they want to die. They just want death and destruction. But let's bomb them and then they're going to calm down. No, nigga, nothing will piss them off more than bombing them. But anyway, let's continue.
All permits for liquefied natural gas that is actually cleaner burning and that our ally, I brought up, if anybody, I'm just putting this out there to the table. This decision by the Biden administration to stop all permits for liquefied natural gas that is actually cleaner burning and that our allies need in order to prevent them from getting their energy from China and Russia. It doesn't make
I'm gonna let Lotus play because I know
I refer to it, Dana, as a schizophrenic approach, but I mean that's a
bro. Wait till you hear what she says because I haven't had a lot of time to do segments on her, bro. She is one of the most unhinged, crazy neocons in the media. In the last few weeks, she's been relentlessly calling for bombing of Iran. And then she'd be like, I think she's gonna say it here if my memory serves. She does this thing where she's like, I think Joe Biden's a fucking coward because he don't want to bomb a country. If you ever hear people in the media calling the commander-in-chief and people cowards for not going to war, that is a deeply evil person. Now listen to what she says here, because, bro, she is fucking something else, bro. She is something else.
Way to describe it. It really is an approach that is political. So you're able to say to the Americans, I'm doing this, or I'm supporting Israel, or we're attacking them, or, you know, we hit them 65 times or 85, whatever the number was. But at the same time saying to Iran, look, we're going to let you have that $10 billion waiver and the $6 billion for the hostages. And we're going to let you sell oil on the international market. And that's what's so.
What do you mean we let them? Look at the map that they are showing, fam. What region is this? Is it the Gulf of Mexico? No. What do you mean we let them? You guys realize that the Biden administration stole billions of dollars of oil from Iran like fucking pirates? You guys know that we stole billions from Afghanistan? The Biden administration are criminal pirates. The United States steals so much money from these people. And then she's upset because Biden is allowing them to exist. That is what she's saying, fam. She's upset because Biden is allowing them to do stuff. But I'll let it continue because, bro, she's so fucking crazy. I don't got enough time to break down anything she says, man.
Frustrating to me. I don't want to have a war any more than anyone else. But I think Greg is right. We've got Americans all over the place. All over in Iraq and Syria, and I understand, but you know, we need to keep an eye on Al Qaeda and everybody else. But when Donald Trump was president, and I don't want to make this political, but you had a leader who said the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, I'm going to kill their leader, Soleimani, took him out. That was it. And then Joe Biden, he leaves Afghanistan. Now, how many billions of dollars worth of armaments are in the Middle East? And I believe they're using them against us now. So the administration is not stupid. There is some other agenda going on where it's not just, yeah, we have to do this, but we got to let China do this. We got to let Iran do that. And we don't want to fight them. And we got to give them warning. And we want them to know we don't want to have a war. Hey, you kill an American, you should have a war.
Bro, she says this shit all the time. She always start her rant with this. I'm not saying we should go to war, but we should fucking go to war. that's every single segment with her. She is advocating for us to illegally occupy other countries, and then when those soldiers are attacked, we then blame another country in the region that had nothing to do with it. I'm gonna wrap up here because I got my guest here. I apologize, Joshua, but I'm gonna play just a little bit more and then we can wrap up and keep it moving. Bro, I just want to break down here. I think you guys are smart enough to know what the fuck you guys are watching. So I promise I'm gonna just let it play a little bit because I just want you guys to witness this. Like, I didn't even know where to start with that shit, man. Like she brags about killing General Soleimani. This is an example of what I use when people say that Trump is anti-war. No, he's not. That is an aggressive pro-war action. So the Trump administration relying on Iran not going fucking batshit crazy, and they claim that Trump's policy of being crazy and assassinating generals led to deterrence. Do they seem deterred? So Iran is more anti-United States than ever because they killed General Soleimani. The militant groups want United States soldiers dead because they killed Soleimani. So how is that deterrence? After 4 years of Trump, we still got a regional war. So how was that deterrence? They tell you stuff on corporate media that don't begin to make sense. But this be my last time playing this, but I'm gonna let it play for as long as I can tolerate. You guys know I struggle with this. I'll let it play for as long as I can tolerate, and then we begin to wrap the segment up.
You know, Judge, you and both General Kellogg brought up the instance with Donald Trump making a threat to the Taliban and then striking Soleimani and that backing off of power. What I would offer up is this. Donald Trump is an exception to the rule. Donald Trump is one of the reasons he was so hated by both the machine that exists within Washington, D.C. that is now gearing up for yet another war. Whether or not it was left or right, Republican or Democrat, there was enmity towards Donald Trump. And I think it's in part because it stood in the way of moments like this when you need some sobriety to say, if I'm connecting the dots correctly, we have presence scattered around this area for counterterrorism. Those targets then get hit. Then we now, too, I'm just listening to the conversation throughout this first 35 minutes, Greg. Then we have to go hit the people that hit us. And we live under this delusion that's just going to stop them. One big stop, and they're not going to. Of course, that's set against the backdrop of about 50 years of talk of regime change in Iran. And we have a great history of regime change. That's worked out really well in Afghanistan. Of course, now we're regime change in Afghanistan, and it feeds instability and chaos across the greater Middle East, everywhere we go in to set stability. And before you know it, we've seeded the ground for more terrorism that comes back and hits us, which undercuts the original purpose of putting troops in the Middle East in the first place as counterterrorism. I just think we might need some sobriety before we fire up the war machine on this cycle that seems to always end up in American death.
And why? Why was it that there was so much going on with Al-Qaeda and all the beheadings and the bombings? And then in 6 weeks, you get rid of the caliphate when Trump came in. He gave the generals full authority, go in there and get rid of it. He got rid of them.
But to Will's point, and I think you're speaking to something that's absolutely right, because I think you have to rewind the tape before you get to Donald Trump, right? Because you're absolutely right. When we talk about when you talk about the caliphate, when you talk about Al-Qaeda, when you talk about Afghanistan, when you talk about the death of our troops, and you talk about how our troops died, and I think that's the hardest part about it, is they died with weapons that we sold to the people to begin with in the 80s and in the
them.
Or sitting in the desert.
Right.
But I mean, let's go back to the 1980s when we were literally selling weapons to many of these places that used those weapons to then kill American troops. In the history of this region, and this is not the only region where this is the case. Anytime America goes into places and says, we're going to build a democracy here, right? Or we're going to make this place better, and we're going to sell weapons to this place and give them a chance. What ends up happening is Americans end up dying as a result. It might not happen in that decade. It might happen 2 or 3 decades later, but it's the weapons that we sold them the decade before.
Hey, we did it.
My brother, you are so close. Holy shit. Yes, I see you, Christopher, I see you, bro. Let him cook. I'm really listening like, bro, you realize you're diagnosing the problem pretty accurately, right? But your politics don't match, because what you're saying is a criticism of neocon politics. Neocon politics is the reason, is the root problem of what you're describing. United States troops are dying because you guys are illegally occupying countries, and neocons under Reagan sold these people weapons because United States is the armed dealer masquerading as a government. So I think I ended there. That's a very, bro, these people be so close. That's how you know they're evil, because they know what the fuck is going on. They just decide to be evil, right? I want to bring my guest in here. I appreciate Joshua for making the time for us. This has been a long time coming. We're going to discuss unions because there are a lot of people in the Bernie left, the progressive left. And I know this because they attack us whenever we criticize unions. I remember when the railroad strike happened and when the union bosses sold out their workers. Regarding that, you had Ryan Graham and the Bernie left that was like, how dare you guys say that the workers don't know what's going on? And we will explain to people, no, we're not. It's the union bosses that keep selling out the workers. The Frito-Lay strike, no one else covered the result of that. The Frito-Lay strike, the workers was undercut by the union bosses who just wanted to get back to work. They didn't get their demands. And now you have UAW. And this is after they voted to support a ceasefire, who now support a genocidal maniac who's who broke strikes, who get federal contract to union busters. This is a pattern which we explain how unions are a tool the working class can use, but only if they use in the right way. If used in the wrong way, they can be quickly hijacked by the capitalist class and turned against us. But with that said, that's the thesis of this. I want to introduce my guest. I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen. I appreciate you joining us, former union worker Joshua Welch. I want to bring you on just as an intro, so you can discuss your experiences and your general opinions about what's going on with unions. I know we had an exchange, and this has been a long time coming because we talked on email before, and you were telling me about your experience with these union leadership. So just to get us started, I'm going to talk about how the union sold out to Democrats and they endorsed Biden. We can discuss that a little bit later, but I want to get a general introduction so people who don't know who you are, you can introduce yourself and your general opinion about what's going on with unions right now.
Okay. Well, Nick, thanks for having me on. It has been a long time coming, but I appreciate the opportunity. So I'm a teacher. I've been in education about 10 years, and I've been a union member. I'm currently not paying dues, which I'll get to. But the problem I want to share with your viewers today is union corruption. So, you've been doing having some good coverage of the UAW endorsement of Biden. I saw this morning a tweet that a lot of the rank and files are now sort of trying to organize to get them to retract that union. I'm really happy to see that. But so I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Take time. I'll love to hear this. Go ahead.
But I'd be glad to elaborate. So back in 2016, when it was Bernie and Hillary in the Democratic primary, I was a strong Bernie supporter at that time. And what happened was one day I read that my union, which is, so just to give your viewers a little understanding about how the unions work. So you have your local union, then you have your statewide union, which is like the parent union of your local, and then you have the national union. So my union, I live in Eugene, Oregon. It's called the Eugene Education Association. Then I have the state union, which is the Oregon Education Association, which sort of is over us. And then you have the National Education Association, which is, I guess, the ultimate parent. So I read, the National Education Association came out and endorsed Hillary Clinton in the
Jesus fucking Christ.
There we go. Right. Yeah. And
I remember these headlines, man, and I'll pass right back to you, but I remember this vividly. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like you see this headline, and I'll pass to you. Hillary Clinton wins support from big labor group. But go ahead, Joshua.
Right. So I was absolutely disgusted because for, more than one reason, but number one, I was a member of this union and I had no say in this endorsement. And I wanted to know, and I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know what was the process. How were members able to participate in this endorsement process? How did this happen? Because at the time, one of the top contributors to Bernie's campaign were teachers. So even though I'm sure Hillary Clinton had significant support amongst teachers, I was very skeptical that she had more support than Bernie. And when I tried to investigate a little bit, I was totally stonewalled. I got essentially ignored by the National Education Association. They wouldn't even return an email. I got a little bit of information from my local union president, but it wasn't much. It was like, well, we don't really participate too much. We can send a delegate or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was very upset. I realized that there was a corrupt process at that time, but I just sort of, ran out of energy to pursue it. I just kind of let it go. I'm a full-time teacher. I'm a dad. I don't have as much time as I'd like to engage in activism, but I let it go at the time. But I knew that unions were engaging in this corrupt practice. So fast forward it was 2022. My U.S. House of Representatives representative was going to retire. He'd been in office for, I think, about 30 years. And Nick, incumbents, to try to knock an incumbent out of office is nearly impossible. So when you have an incumbent retire, it's an opportunity to possibly get somebody in there better. It's a rare opportunity. Now, I'd never run for public office, but I saw that the person that was probably going to get nominated was a absolutely corrupt Democrat. So I wanted to get in the race so I could be an anti-corruption voice in the primary. And she went on to, of course, get the nomination, because what happened is my union, my state union, the Oregon Education Association, and this is important this is sort of the takeaway here, is unions like mine have created political action committees which act as endorsing and funding mechanisms for corrupt establishment politicians. So a union itself is not allowed to use like union dues to fund political behavior, right? So they have to create these political action committees. And they do it. It's very secretive. It is not very democratic. And like you had just said, it's the leadership that have sort of hijacked the union and are using our name to endorse these corrupt politicians, and then using our name to raise money and fund them.
So, that's so crazy, man. Like, do people realize how fucking crazy that is? Oh my God, they taking money from the working class. So not for anyway, continue. That's so fucking crazy, man.
It is. So, on one hand, and I want to be very clear, I am a strong union supporter. I want unions to get stronger and to spread. I would, the European model of unions is something that we should be working towards, where we got much better, more power. You have members on the boards of corporations and stuff from the unions. I'm 100% pro-union. But what unions are doing is, they do what they're supposed to do a lot, negotiate for fair wages and benefits. But when it comes election time, they are turning it around and using these political action committees to install corrupt political insiders and ultimately screwing their membership. So when I got into this race, I had a front row seat to this process. Now, they tried to give me the runaround. They ended up keeping me out of their endorsing. I mean, I was a teacher, and my teachers union ended up keeping me out of their little, it was it was more of a theater show, what was going on. It looked like they have this sort of process where they're giving people.
What was they telling you? Like, what were they telling you to try and fend you off?
Well, it was interesting, and I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but I feel like as soon as they knew that I was in the race, I gave an interview. So in Oregon, when you register to be in a primary, you have to go through the Secretary of State's website essentially, and as soon as your name gets on there, it is available for the public to see. So when I registered, I started getting calls from journalists for interviews. I started getting calls and emails asking me to participate in like debates and forums. But oddly, my own union didn't reach out to me. And now the first interview I gave was right away. I gave it to a newspaper, an Oregon newspaper, and I totally called out the corrupt duopoly. And it was I felt it was a good interview. The reporter really gave me a good opportunity to indict the corrupt system. And so I'm sure somebody in my union saw that interview and they said, we don't want this guy participating.
I can only imagine. I wish there was footage of that. I bet that was an amazing scene to see. And as you was probably explaining why the duopoly is horrible,
well,
they were horrified.
If you look it up, I can send you the link on the email to the interview. It was a newspaper interview, so it was on the phone. I gave the interview, and then they ran it, and then
I'll check it out. Check it out.
But anyway, it was just me explaining how the corrupt duopoly works. The donors, the donors write the checks, and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party do their bidding. And so I'm sure I'm sure somebody in the union read that and said, we don't want this guy participating. And so when I didn't hear from my union, I reached out to them and I said, hey, what's going on here? I want to participate. I want a chance to earn the endorsement of our union. And they're like, well, yeah, let me check on that. They kind of they stalled. They gave me some.
That's how you know they was wrong. And I'll let you continue, but this is my initial thought. Like, if they was acting honestly, wouldn't they say, well, we choose not to endorse you because you have views that don't represent the union? Wouldn't they just be straight up about it? The fact that they're invasive, That's how you know that they are being sneaky. But continue your story, Josh.
Oh yeah, so very sneaky, very secretive. So by the time I'm trying to communicate with my local union and the statewide union, because the statewide union runs this political action committee that's doing the actual endorsing. And I'm talking to both people in both places. And by the time they finally get me the information that I need to participate, it's like a day away from the actual event. And the event is, so I literally, I just didn't, I couldn't possibly do what I needed to do to participate. So they succeeded in sort of keeping me out of the process. But even that, I couldn't even find out as a dues paying member. They wouldn't even give me any information about how the process went, like how many, who voted, how many votes did candidate A get for the endorsement, how many votes did candidate B
get? So shady, man.
They refused to give me any information. And so, of course, if you're proud of your process, you're going to share it, right? It's going to be open. So they totally hide it. This candidate, your viewers can look her up. Her name's Val Hoyle. She was the absolute stereotypical corrupt establishment candidate. She'd taken money, Nick, from big pharma, big tobacco.
Can you type her name in the chat, and I might be able to look her up because if you got a chance, do you know how to spell her name?
Yeah, it's Val Hoyle, VALHOYLE.
Oh yeah, I see it. But continue. So, Congresswoman Val
Hoyle. And I mean, she's absolutely perfect for Washington. She's just a perfect Washington animal. She's going to fit in. She fits in really well there. But here was the thing. We had a lot of people because she represents, our district is Eugene and surrounding areas. So it's a pretty progressive district. So you had a lot of people come out ahead of time and talk about her corruption. And boy, all of the political players here all fell in line. Our senators, our representatives, our mayor, our city council, like all of the political the Democratic machine all fell in line and supported this woman. She was, and not long before this, now she'd been in Oregon politics. She'd had various positions in Oregon politics. Just to give you one example of this woman's record, we had the liquid natural gas company wanted to run a giant liquid natural gas pipeline through the middle of the state and to the ocean to distribute natural gas. I mean, this thing was so unpopular, Nick. It was extremely unpopular with progressives, environmentalists, landowners, you name it. But she was on the take. She was taking money from this company. And guess what?
Capitalist dictatorship, right? This is a capitalist dictatorship.
Guess what? She came out in favor of this giant pipeline. They called her the pipeline candidate. It was atrocious. And so she ends up, getting the endorsement of my union and of the Oregon Education Association. And, they rubber stamped her. They helped fund her. And now I can speak about my, personal experience.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I mean, but what I'm saying is this isn't just a my union problem. This is pervasive, Nick. In fact, after this happened, I did another interview a while back. I wrote an op-ed for our newspaper. I had a lot of union members reach out to me and share the same exact kind of stories. It's not just teachers unions. It is, the SEIU, the UAW, right? So this is a problem, Nick, that workers, especially union members, can really do something about. Because if we organize, like I see the UAW folks are, we can take back power from those corrupt leaders that are operating these PACs. But the problem is like you understand this as somebody who covers politics, that, most people just don't know what's going on, right? Yeah. And a lot of people, of course, a lot of workers are just in survival mode, trying to get by from day to day, and they don't have an opportunity, or they don't have the energy and time to figure this stuff out. But when you talk to union members about this, they don't like it. They think it's wrong. And it's an opportunity this is an opportunity for unions to come in and actually get behind and lift up unknown candidates who are who are actual pro-worker candidates, and who are not on the take, who aren't taking the corporate cash, right? But instead, they're getting behind the establishment candidates. And I'll just add one more point, Nick, that if we want to grow unions in this country and make unions stronger, your membership can't just see your union as an arm of one of the corrupt parties, right?
Exactly.
So if you want conservatives and independents and libertarians and progressives to want to pay union dues and grow unions, you have to show those members that you're not just a rubber stamp, funding machine for the corrupt establishment. You have to show members that you're just working for the workers' agenda. And so I talked to a number of conservatives and independents who say, I'm pro-union, but my union is just doing the dirty work of the Democratic Party.
I live in Missouri. Missouri is a right-to-work state, and that's exactly the problem that we have right now. That's why I cringe so hard when I see these endorsements for Democrats, because the reason why there's a lot of distrust in this red state, Missouri, for unions is because they see unions as doing the elite of the Western coastal elite Democratic Party. So if you're a conservative person who would otherwise be class conscious, you're just socially conservative, you grew up religious, so you're socially conservative, but you have some sort of class consciousness, and then you see a union endorse Hillary Clinton, you're out. You're out. And so that's such a great point, because I've seen this problem affect my state. But go ahead, John. I think you want to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. If you're a conservative worker, you're sitting at home, right? Or whatever, you're consuming the news, and you see, oh, my union just endorsed this corrupt candidate, and I had no chance to be involved, right? Because I don't necessarily think, I think unions do have to use their power to try to, whatever way they can, to advance a worker's agenda. And if that means endorsing political candidates and funding political candidates, fine. But you have to make sure that, number one, your process is completely transparent, so all of the public and all of the members understand how you're endorsing and funding. And number two, you have to give each member an easy option to participate. And so, right now, the processes are very secretive, very hard to participate in. If you might have to drive a long distance to participate in this event that they have. You have to pay. You actually have to pay out of pocket. It's a small fee to participate. Crazy, so if unions want to grow, they need to have, and they want to keep using these political action committees to get involved in politics. They need to have a completely transparent system. They need to make sure every member can get involved. And right now, that just isn't the case. And you're alienating a giant chunk of your workers who are not Democratic normies, right? So, if you're a sort of a standard like Hillary Clinton Democrat, you think, hey, my union's doing great. But if you're not, if you're an independent or conservative or Green Party guy or whoever, you're looking at this process and you're disgusted, and it makes you not want to support your union. I tried to engage my leadership in a reform process. I said, and multiple times, my union president said, I had emailed her saying, look, this is just a corrupt rubber stamping machine for the establishment. Independent candidates have no chance in this system. And I said, I am not going to pay dues unless I'm going to opt out of paying my dues unless you agree to engage in a reform process. If you want to have a meeting, I'll have a meeting. So she said, yeah, let's have a meeting. Had the meeting. She said, you know what? I read your email. You're right, but it's fine with me. That's what she said. It's fine with me. And so that is the attitude of a lot of these people who are running these political action committees and who are at the top of the leadership positions. They are sort of Democratic normies. They are, quote unquote, fine with it because, but they actually treat you with hostility. I was as a dues paying member, just trying to get the details of the endorsement process. And they were treating me like I was like,
how dare you participate in democracy?
Yeah. Like I was the enemy because I wanted to know what was going on with my union. So I just, I know that you have very informed viewers and, very intelligent viewers. And I want those viewers to take this message to their union brothers and sisters. And if they're union members, I want them, if you're in a union, figure out how your union is operating with endorsing and funding candidates, figure it out. And if, go to your union leadership and do whatever you need to do to enact reform, because they're not going to change until membership organizes and uses our collective power to make them change. They're not going to change on their own. You got to make them change. But we are in a position, the members of the union are in a position because there are way more of us than there are of them. And we can really make significant progress on this.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. This is so important. This is something that we've been hammering since the beginning of our being. You have the Ryan Grimm, Breaking Point, establishment, independent media class that idolize union bosses, and you had Ryan Grimm running cover for the rail bosses who sold out their workers. And this has been a problem in the independent media sphere. Why people don't understand why unions are so bad? Because these Bernie leftists and these social democrats put the union leadership people on a pedestal. And then we came out and criticized them. And then I still remember to this day, if you guys offline, you probably didn't see it. But on Twitter, people was like, oh, look, Red, Brown, and Lions are being coming out against unions. And that was like the clickbait they was using because we had a legitimate critique of how union bosses work. So this, and I'm saying all this stuff, and guys, you guys know why. This is why I despise these people, because I saw like the extremely bad faith bullshit they would do. This legitimate critique on unions, they would then say, "Oh, you must be anti-union." That's why, Josh, you had to preface that I support unions, because this culture had been established that you don't question the union bosses. And what's the question that we ask? We tell you guys to ask yourself on RBN all the time. What does this serve? How does that serve us? For you guys to not question the union bosses, especially when I keep seeing these people bask in the glory that come from the blood, sweat, and tears of the rank and file, and then they constantly undercut their ask and their advocacy, constantly trying to pull them to the moderate position. We explained many times before how when you look at workers' right in this country, they was gained by socialists and communists in unions. And then the establishment realized that we need to have a more suitable left. So then they implanted social democrats into unions. And then capitalists started infiltrating unions in the 70s and 80s. This is very, very well documented. We have done many streams explaining this. Meanwhile, the social democrats never did streams talking about this. How many channels have been covering this outside of RBN, the capitalist infiltration of unions? Every other channel, when they cover unions, they cover them like gods that can't be touched. Like as a duh. Like Crystal Ball is willing to vote for a genocidal maniac because the illusions of what he did for labor. That's what I'm talking about. But Josh, I think you want to chime in, and then we can quickly cover the last story because I know we gotta get out of here soon. But Josh, anything you want to add before we move
Well,
on?
yeah, just lastly, you know, I want workers to try to, you know, work within their union for reform. But we also, you know, you brought up Ryan Grimm. I love this. If Ryan Grimm wants to do some good journalism, I think he does, investigate some of these unions. Look into their processes of endorsing and funding. Start asking questions. Start pulling the curtain back. And because we do need more coverage of this problem. It is, you know, workers tirelessly, blood, sweat, and tears all the time trying to get what we deserve. And then our union leadership, which is in my experience, is oftentimes disconnected from the realities of ordinary workers. They're at election time, they're turning around and pushing those corrupt candidates right into office that are taking the corporate money and screwing workers. So I want to see workers take it upon themselves to try to reform from the inside out, but I also want to see journalists and YouTubers, etc., cover this problem. Unions are rubber stamping corrupt political insiders every election cycle across the country and screwing their workers. Let's see some investigative reporting on it.
You want to know who did that over 2 years ago? We had a general strike summit on RBN where many union leaders and many UN people was explaining this problem on RBN as Ryan Grimm and the independent media completely ignored the General Strike Summit. You guys know there was an independent media blackout on the General Strike Summit. Jimmy Dore is like one of the few people who covered it. Like everyone saw it on Twitter, like it was viral shit. We even had General Strike Summit training for a bit, and then we noticed, and it was like glaringly obvious that people were trying their best not to talk about the General Strike Summit. And then the people who did, Hassan Piker, he smeared it. He said, oh, they have the General Strike Summit. They don't even have UN people on. And we did. He just smeared it without knowing it. All the big YouTubers, all the big people who pretend to be social democrats, we saw this happen. And then after Hassan Piker smeared our General Strike Summit, he's like, this is unserious. What are you going to do? Have a live stream talking about labor? What are you going to accomplish? He then stole our idea a year later. And then he had UN bosses on. He's like, look, I'm doing a live stream with UN people on. And then everyone praised him for doing something that we did a year and a half before him. You guys know I got a chip on my shoulder for saying this kind of shit. You guys know this. I'll give you last thoughts, Joshua. Anything you want to expound on this story? Actually, before I pass to you, I read this earlier, and I just want to read this out loud for the class. After everything that you explained about her, I want to end on this. I'll pass it to you for last thoughts. I read this as you were speaking, and I was like, "What? What do they call her? The pipeline queen? Is that right?"
Well, she was called she was part of the story. It was by the Lever, the Lever News. And they called her I think the headline was the pipeline candidate. The pipeline candidate.
Look what they say on their website about her. This is what they say about on her website for Valhalla for Congress. So is she running for Congress or is she in Congress? I'll look at that.
She is. So she's a representative of Oregon's 4th district right now.
Of course.
So anyway, my party message is, since you brought up general strike, like we need a general strike. We really do. I'm a teacher, and I'm ready for a general strike, because this corrupt system is just so terrible. We only have so many tools, Nick, in our toolbox to deal with this. And a general strike is probably the most effective tool, because if teachers unions and nurses unions and auto workers get together and say, you know what, we want a new economic bill of rights, and if we don't get it, we're going to shut this baby down.
Yes, sir.
That's what we need. So general strike, bring it on.
Yes, sir. And every single union person that we had on our show endorsed the general strike. I am not bullshitting you. Not one time have we had a union member on our show like, oh no, you guys got to calm down with that general strike shit. Not one time on our general strike summit, everyone endorsed it. I'm talking about like high level. We had people that was high level union workers for 40 plus years calling for a general strike. Meanwhile, among the Social Democrat left. You had Hassan Piker and Ryan Green. I will never let these people off the hook. They was mocking the idea. They're like, these people think you can have a general strike. They just fucking grifting. They trying to mislead. They was speaking out against it. And then like a year and a half later, when they realized they became popular because of us, they didn't start tweeting general strike shit. I remember this vividly. Like, for real, I think we covered before. Look up Hassan Piker or Ben. I'm sure you can find it. The clip where he was like mocking the idea of us having a general strike summit. Meanwhile, every single union member that we ever talked to endorsed the idea. But anyway, I got a chip on my shoulder. You don't have to comment on this stuff, but I just want to show you guys what I be seeing and why I despise these people. Like, I see stuff that you guys haven't seen. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the inside happening that you guys don't know about. And it expose these people's character. You can feel free to interrupt if you want to, Josh. I want to read this. I know I hyped this up for Rob, so I'm going to read this and I'll pass it to you. Okay. Val Hoyle for Congress. I don't know how to say her name. That's a hard name to say for me. Val Hoyle, record of standing up for Oregon's hardworking families and smart business stems from a lifetime of experience. Look at this. This is how they do it. From her union roots to her leadership at the state legislature. You guys see how these Democrat capitalist fucking class enemies hijack unions, and then you put that on her resume as evidence that they're pro-working class. It's insane the grift they got away with. But I'll give you last word on this segment. Anything else you want to add in general, Josh? And then I'm gonna just read the receipts about the UAW, just so I don't clickbait you guys on that. So go ahead, Josh.
Well, first of all, I hope the UAW is successful in organizing and enforcing their trying to hold their leadership accountable for this atrocious endorsement of Genocide Joe. I'll just share one more detail of my experiences. When I first got in that race, I dropped out after 6 weeks, and it's a long story, but at the beginning I talked to somebody in my union that had been there for probably 20 years. She was somebody that I had worked with. And I said, hey, I'm running, and I'm going to be seeking our union's endorsement. And she said, well, who else is running for this? Do you know? And I said, well, Val Hoyle is going to run, and everybody knows her here. Right. And my fellow union member said, well, it's going to be hard not to endorse her because of our relationship with her. She just gave away the game right away. Yeah. That's the way it works, And so, anyway, I want, Nick, I'll just thank you for the opportunity to share this issue.
No, I'm glad that we finally did this, man. I gotta have you back on again because I'm planning a panel. Like, in fact, like you guys have any idea how we got a ton of UN people that watch us, like including Josh, right? I have a guy who reached out to me that we had to reschedule. He's coming on next week. We were about to do a panel together, but it didn't work out. And literally, as we was live right now, there is a warehouse union person who led union struggles. I'm literally talking to him on Twitter right now. He like, I'm watching your stream. I'm in unions. Hey, reach out to me right now. So every time I do these streams, I always have union people reach out to me like, hey, yo, I want to come on, share your story. And this is like the first of an ongoing series at Nick at Night, Nick at Noon, where we're going to expose these fucking corrupt unions. We're going to do the journalism that you're not going to see in established media. So this is not going to be the last time you see you, Josh. I know it took a while for us to get you on the show, but I appreciate the experience and the knowledge that you bring to this conversation. So I'm definitely going to reach out again. I want to plan it's not going to be a summit like a mini panel. I want to bring on like a mini general strike summit. Not really, but like maybe like a panel where I bring on, because there's so many people. There's so limited amount of time. You guys see, we do 3-hour live streams. There's so little amount of time, but I want to bring all these people on. This is going to be a first of an ongoing series at Nick at Night, Nick at Noon. So
yeah,
go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Well, I'd be absolutely happy to participate in any forum or panel and be back. So you just let me know, Nick, and keep up. Sure. Keep up the good work. I know that we need a lot more coverage of this. So keep it up, man.
Yeah, greatly appreciate your time and the stories that you told today. Very, very important. And this is why I got into citizen journalism, because the people who have the platform way bigger than mine not doing what I think they should be doing. Like they should be having people like Josh on their shows almost every fucking week. They just don't. Anyway, let me continue. We can rant on that all day, but I'm ready to let's move on. For your first take, your time in mind. We're about at 90-minute mark where I generally want to keep it around because I know you guys don't want to watch 3-hour live streams all the time. When we had the founder live streams, they may go long. We can't promise you guys those streams gonna be short. When I have Rome, CJ, and that's a fucking banger. And Jamu, he rescheduled for next week, so that's gonna be another banger. Let me read this headline so I don't clickbait you guys. We already covered this a little bit. You guys see, this is the harm that comes from UAW endorsing Biden. It gives these people a win. And the media has been loving this story. Biden bask in the glow of UAW endorsement. I've seen countless MSNBC segments, but for a second time, I can't show you guys where they're like, hey, look, another example of genocide Joe Biden. You know, the senator MNDA, he is an advocate of the workers. This is what they've been running with ever since this endorsement came out. So this is why these unions that keep giving these Democrats these unnecessary wins are disgusting. You have UAW that just announced support for a ceasefire, and then they support a guy who lied about 40 beheaded babies, lied about Hamas having headquarters in hospitals, cut UNRWA aid that would doom thousands and thousands of Palestinians to starvation. He is literally a monster. He sent 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs to Gaza to be used against children. And now that the UAW membership who supported a call for ceasefire are going to endorse this person? UAW members vote on resolution calling leadership to rescind Biden endorsement. Rank and file union members across labor groups are organizing to demand their leadership rescind endorsements for the incumbent president. So we see how this will pan out because you have multiple of these branch, including the UAW for Palestine branch, which is huge. They came out and unanimously voted against it, against the endorsement of the UAW leadership. And now, if you look at social media, you see all these rank and file people that said there was zero democratic process here, that they wasn't listening to the workers. There was just an unapologetic sellout of the workers that was done here. So we're going to continue to follow this story because this struggle between labor leadership and the working class have largely been ignored for a very long time. I have strong disagreements with the World Socialist website on a lot of takes. Like I saw, the guy who founded World Socialist website, he debated Sabi, and it was like, ugh. They got some takes that I was like, what is you guys thinking? But they have done good. They're like one of the few people that have done good reporting on how union leadership sold out the workers. So I give them props for that. I give them props for doing a good job on that. I think we're about done. I think we're at 90 minutes, so I think we're almost done. We're gonna have Josh on back again. Appreciate his time with us. Yeah, I think we're about done. I'll read this last receipt. UAW. Actually, no, that's the one I just read. What the hell? Oh Jesus! There was another one I was looking for, but fuck it. Anyway, all right. I guess we can wrap it there. I'll read super chats. Let's read super chats and we can wrap up. I think I got everything I wanted. It was a good stream. I'm going to continue these live streams of having union workers on to share their stories. The people that won't be these are the people that won't be platformed on those large channels. They just rather talk to the union bosses. So stay tuned. Nick at Night is Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I didn't do last Thursday because we had the 3-hour stream with the founders, Nick, Rome, and CJ. And then you had Sabby and JB who killed it as well. So that was like 5 hours of content. So I was like, all right, that's a ton of fucking content. We can just do Saturday because I already provide content for you guys Thursday. But usually it's Tuesday, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Next time I'll be back will be Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. I have like a large litmus of guests that coming on. I'm gonna bring on Nico soon. You know my boy Nico House. He went to Egypt to help supply aid to people in Gaza. I'm very proud of people that's in our community. The people that like Nico is another person who was smeared by the Social Democrat Bernie left. Meanwhile, Nico House is doing the damn thing, going to Egypt to provide aid. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna have him on sometime next week. I'm joining Nico on his channel next week on Wednesday. I'm gonna see if I can get this replay. I was on this libertarian channel. He's a friend of Comrade Misty. I was talking to this libertarian. We had a good time. We didn't shy about what we disagreed on. It was a good conversation. So I need to get some more of my guest appearances pulled out. I don't have time to put them up all the time. We need help. We need help at RBN. If you're a union member, oh shit, Zoya, thank you for reminding me. Let's go. I told you guys, we got banger after banger after banger after banger on RBN. We have Garland Nixon. That's the 6th. So that's Nick at Night. Let's go. I think CJ joining me too. I remember we talked about that. We have so many guests coming up. I'll be forgetting sometimes when I go live. I took too many damn fucking blows to the head. You got Garland Nixon coming on Nick at Night on the 6th. Lee Camp will be joining Wednesday evening. So I definitely might have to make it for that as well. So we got banger after banger after banger after banger. We had the founder roundtable on Thursday. I had Carl Zob. We had a banger 90-minute foreign policy live stream. And now we got fucking Garland Nixon coming. My boy Lee Kemp is coming next week. I told you guys when I started season 2 of Nick at Night, it was going to be banger after banger after banger. And I think I provided that for you guys. So make sure you guys look at the schedule for Nick at noon on Saturdays, Nick at Night, because every single live stream, we coming with people who are slept on. We're going to have union workers expose union corruption. We're going to be exposing the duopoly, the empire, foreign policy, class-based, Marxist-style commentary you're getting at Nick at Night and Nick at Noon. Make sure you guys check us out. We are maybe I can take this down. I'm tired of being on camera though. The algorithm doesn't help us. You guys don't get notification for every stream. So since the algorithm doesn't help us, just remember the schedule. I'm going to be live Tuesday and Thursday evening, Saturday at noon, 3 Saturdays a month at noon. So just tune in. We got a lot of great guests for you guys. Another banger after banger. I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.